I don't know what made me freeze. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, the same eyes that once promised me a lifetime of happiness, of love, of us against the world. Or maybe it was the words themselves, so calm, so final, as if he were delivering a death sentence, not a revelation. "We're leaving forever," he whispered, his voice shaking only slightly. The words felt like they were made of ice, crawling under my skin, chilling me to the bone. I blinked, trying to process what he said, but it didn't make sense. How could it? It was impossible. Our house, our beautiful house, the one we'd built together, the one I had worked so hard to make perfect, was crumbling before my eyes. The walls, once sturdy and comforting, were now melting into something dark and grotesque. The floor beneath me was warping, bubbling like hot tar, as though the very foundation was giving way. The furniture, the curtains, even the framed photos on the walls, everything was being consumed by the heat, as though the world around us had caught fire, as if the house itself were turning into a lake of molten flames. I staggered back, my feet sinking into the warm, soft floor, panic rising like bile in my throat. Felt the sweat on my skin, the heat radiating from every direction, yet my body was numb. I wanted to scream, to run, to escape, but my legs wouldn't move, and my mouth refused to form words. Then I heard it. The slow, rising hum, the kind of noise that grinds at your soul, came from beneath us, from the very depths of the earth, a low vibration that shook the air itself. The temperature was unbearable, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the disaster unfolding round me. "Come on," he said again, this time more urgently. His voice was the only sound that made sense, the only sound that kept me tethered to reality. "We have to go now. It's happening." I finally found my voice. "What are you talking about? What's happening? Where are we going?" He didn't answer right away, his eyes distant, as though something far beyond us had taken his attention. The air around us thickened, pressing in on me, and I could feel the weight of it, pushing me toward him like it was urging me to understand, to accept it. "We're leaving," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper, "because there's nothing left. Here, everything is gone. The fire is coming, and we can't outrun it." I wanted to shake him, to demand that he explain, to tell me why everything felt wrong, but my legs were still frozen in place, my body trembling uncontrollably. He stepped closer, taking my hand, his grip tight, almost desperate. I glanced at his face, searching for some sign, some hint that this wasn't real, but all I saw was pain, pain I'd never seen before, a depth of sorrow that made my chest ache. I knew him better than anyone. This was the man I had built a life with, the man I trusted with everything. But right now, the man standing before me didn't look like the man I loved. He looked like someone caught in the middle of a nightmare that didn't seem to have an end. I opened my mouth, ready to ask more questions, to beg for answers, but before I could speak, the house shook violently. I felt my knees buckle beneath me, and for a moment I thought I might fall, but his grip on me didn't falter. He pulled me upright, his voice insistent. "We need to leave now," he repeated, this time with more urgency. His voice was raw, reflection of the fear in his eyes. "It's already too late." The floor beneath us groaned, buckling and splitting open as the fire began to consume the walls. I could feel the heat closing in, the temperature rising with each passing second, and in that moment I knew that everything I had known was disappearing. I glanced toward the windows, but the sky outside was no longer the familiar blue. It was dark, swirling with an unnatural storm, the clouds churning like they were alive. The wind had picked up, but it wasn't just wind. It was something more, something ominous that filled the air with an eerie hum. It was as if the world itself was on the verge of collapsing. "What's happening to the house?" I asked, my voice cracking. His grip tightened, and I could see his jaw clenching as though he were forcing himself to remain calm. But I could see it in his eyes, He was terrified. And that terrified me more than anything. The man who had always been my anchor, my steady rock, was afraid. And there was no escaping what was coming. "It's not just the house," he said, his voice barely audible over the rising chaos. "It's everything. Everything you thought was real, everything we've built. It's all coming undone." I turned to him, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. "What are you saying? Happening? Why is everything?" But I didn't finish the question. Because that's when it happened. The floor beneath me gave way, and the room seemed to implode, the walls and ceiling twisting and warping into shapes that defied logic. The fire, no, the molten lake, seemed to surge forward, spreading faster than I could comprehend. It was as though the house itself was melting, disintegrating into nothing, consumed by a force that was beyond my understanding. I gasped for air, choking on the smoke that was now swirling around us, filling the room with a sickly, acrid scent. My legs gave out and I fell to my knees, struggling to breathe, to think, to make sense of what was happening. "We have to go," he shouted, pulling me up again, his grip so tight it hurt. "Now. We don't have much time." I didn't know what to do. My mind was a blur, everything spinning around me like some surreal, twisted dream. I tried to stand, but the molten floor beneath us was sinking faster now. And the heat, God, the heat was unbearable. I could feel the skin on my hands and arms beginning to burn, the fire licking at my flesh. I looked at him, my eyes wide with panic. Where are we supposed to go?" His eyes flicked toward the door, and in that moment I saw something else in his eyes, something dark, something familiar and yet foreign. A part of him was breaking just as everything else was. His mouth opened as though he was going to say something else, but then he just shook his head, his voice choking on the words. "I don't know," he whispered. "But we have to get out. We can't stay here." And then it hit me, the truth of what he was saying, what this moment was. It wasn't just the house that was burning. It wasn't just the world around us falling apart. We were burning too. We were caught in something much bigger than us, something we couldn't control, something that had already started to claim us. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but there was nothing to grab onto. The fire, no, the molten lake, was consuming everything, and in that moment I knew that nothing could save us. The world we had known was gone. Forever. And so we ran. We ran through the fire and the melting house, through the chaos and destruction, but I knew deep down that it wasn't enough. We weren't running from the fire. We were running from something much worse. We were running from ourselves. We ran. I couldn't remember how long we had been running, how many rooms we had passed, how many walls had collapsed around us. All I knew was that the heat was unbearable, that every breath I took burned my lungs, that every step was like sinking into quicksand. The world had turned into a nightmare, twisted, distorted, a nightmare where the laws of physics didn't apply. The house had become something else entirely, something monstrous, and no matter how fast we ran, the fire followed. And the whispers, they were everywhere. At first I thought it was just the house groaning, cracking under the pressure. But then I realized it was something else, something darker. The whispers weren't just a sound, they were a presence that was wrapped around me, tugging at my skin, curling around my thoughts. It was pulling me down, drowning me in its cold, malevolent grip. But we had to keep moving. I glanced over at him, my breath coming in ragged gasps. His face was pale, sweat streaming down his face, his eyes wide with fear. But there was something else there too. Something I couldn't place. Guilt, regret, and maybe, just maybe, a flicker of something darker. I didn't have time to process it. The fire was chasing us, and the smoke, thick and choking, was beginning to make it hard to see. The air was stifling, and every step I took felt like I was being dragged back, like something was holding me down, refusing to let me escape. I stumbled, but he caught me, his grip tight on my arm, pulling me forward. "We have to get to the door," he shouted, his voice hoarse. I nodded, but my mind was in chaos. The door, the exit, I couldn't see it anymore. The walls were moving, twisting in on themselves, and the floor was warping beneath me. The house was alive, reacting to our every movement, responding to the curse, to the darkness that had seeped into every crevice of our home. "Where is it?" I gasped, trying to keep up with him as we raced through the labyrinth of crumbling rooms. He didn't answer. His jaw was clenched. His eyes focused on something in the distance, but I couldn't see it. The fire, the smoke, the whispers, they were all closing in, merging into a single entity, a force of pure destruction. And then I saw it. A door. It was at the end of the hallway, bathed in an eerie, unnatural glow. It was the only thing untouched, the only thing that hadn't succumbed to the fire. "Come on," he yelled, pulling me toward it. We reached the door, but as soon as we did, the ground beneath us shook violently. A door was already opening, but it was as if something was trying to pull us back, trying to stop us. Flames roared louder, and the smoke grew thicker, blinding me. The air was thick, suffocating, and I felt the weight of the curse pressing down on me. I grabbed the doorframe, pulling myself through, but as soon as I crossed the threshold, something stopped me. I turned, my heart hammering in my chest. The house wasn't just collapsing. It was changing. The fire wasn't just fire anymore, it was something else. It had morphed, turning into a dark, writhing mass of smoke and ash, a living entity with no form, no shape, but an endless, consuming presence. It was the embodiment of the curse, the thing that had been awakened by my touch, by my presence. It was coming for us. "Run!" he screamed, his voice desperate, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at the swirling mass of darkness that was closing in on us. "We can't outrun it," I whispered. "It's here. It's too late." "No." He pulled me harder, his hands shaking as he tried to drag me away from the door. "We're not giving up. Not like this. We're getting out of here." But it was too late. The door slammed shut behind me, and the house that had been my home, disappeared. The world around me shifted, warped, twisted into something unrecognizable. The air thickened, pressing in from all sides, and I could feel the darkness closing in, suffocating me. We were outside now, but we weren't free. The fire was gone, replaced by something far worse. The sky had turned black, swirling with dark clouds that churned like a storm. The ground beneath us was cracked, jagged, like the earth itself was breaking apart. The wind howled, carrying with it the faintest sound of whispers, but these weren't the same whispers. No, these were worse. They were voices, familiar voices, voices from my past, from my family, each one calling my name, pleading with me, cursing me. I turned to him, my eyes wide with disbelief. "What is this? Where are we? What's happening?" He didn't answer at first, his face twisted with pain, and when he finally spoke, his voice was strained. "This isn't the world we know anymore. This is what happens when the curse breaks free." I couldn't understand. The curse? What curse? What did you do? What have we done? He looked at me then, his eyes dark, his face filled with guilt. "I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to be part of this. But it's too late. We've crossed the line. There's no going back now." I could feel the tears welling in my eyes, but I couldn't understand the magnitude of what he was saying. The curse. The curse had been something my mother had warned me about. Something she had tried to keep hidden from me. But I never imagined it would be this. Never imagined it could destroy everything. "I didn't choose this," I whispered, shaking my head. "I didn't choose any of this." He stepped closer, his hand reaching out, but I pulled away, instinctively stepping back. "You didn't have to choose. The curse chose you. And now you're a part of it. You've awakened. Something that can't be stopped. Something that will follow us wherever we go." I felt the ground shift beneath me again, the earth trembling as the whispers grew louder, more frantic. The darkness was closing in, the storm above us growing more intense with every passing second. And then, through the chaos, I saw it. A figure standing in the distance, its shape flickering in and out of view like a mirage. The figure was tall, cloaked in shadows, but I knew who it was. I had seen this figure before, in the visions, in the dreams. It was the one who had started it all. The one who had cursed our family. One who had made the mistake of thinking they could control the darkness. I wanted to run, to hide, but I couldn't. The curse had already claimed me, and it wouldn't let me. Oh. The figure began to move toward us, its presence suffocating, overwhelming. I could feel its eyes on me, feel the weight of its gaze. And in that moment I knew. There was no escaping it. No escaping the darkness, the curse, the thing that had been hunting me since the moment I touched the skull. We were caught. We had always been caught. And there was no way out.